Welcome back to Lessons in Attachment. Today we're going to look at why some triggers feel so intense, and that might mean compared to other triggers, or that you might find that sometimes you get really triggered by things that other people might not. So sometimes we might find ourselves in a situation that is seemingly small, but our reaction is huge. And there can be, a lot of fallout from that. We can question ourselves, we can doubt ourselves, we can feel bad, we can compare ourselves to others. How comes they're okay in these situations and I'm not like that? And of course, when we do that, we actually don't even end up really working on what it is that's triggering us. We don't really end up doing that inner work that's going to help us in the long term, because we're just so busy beating ourselves up, questioning ourselves, feeling embarrassed, whatever the fallout has been. We're going to really look at, well, why does that happen? Why is it that I have these intense reactions? Why is it that in some situations I'm different to other people? What I do want to say is that also there are things that you don't get triggered over that other people do. So it's not like you are broken. It's not like that this is just something that you're experiencing. There will be things that you don't understand when other people get triggered as well. But of course, we are talking about your experience. Just before we go on, I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself. So I'm Carly Ann. I am a qualified somatic attachment coach and a trainee psychotherapist. I'm the founder of the Attachment Recovery Gym, which is the ideal place if you have an anxious attachment style. If you're anxious about relationships and you're in your healing and learning era, this is the best place to be. You'll hear me refer to the Attachment Recovery Gym throughout the episodes. It is an online membership and it is full of resources, workshops, meditations, and tools that are all focused on helping people that lean towards an anxious attachment. So sometimes we might find ourselves in a situation that is seemingly small, but our reaction is huge. So let's have a little think about why sometimes it's so intense. One of the reasons is that a real threat is being perceived. In the world that we live in today, we get threatened by something that we see on social media or a comment from someone. If we feel like something is happening in our world that is going to break up our relationship, that's going to make us feel not good enough, or prove that we are unworthy in some way, that will be felt in our bodies like it is a real life or death kind of threat. And unless we're able to stand back and really zoom out and get a clear picture that actually we're safe, we're actually okay, a lot of this is in our minds, a lot of this is linked to the past, as you'll hear in a moment. Unless we can do that, it's going to feel like a real threat. And what that means is that our body is going to do what it's meant to do, and it's going to react in a way that it needs to protect us. That's actually the physical symptoms that we feel. The legs that are like jelly, the heart racing, the shaking. It's actually a physical reaction that's meant to protect us and keep us safe. And we don't need that in many of these situations. So that is one of the reasons. Your body is actually doing what it is supposed to do, but it's doing it because it is perceiving this situation as a real threat. And you may well be thinking, actually, it is a real threat. It is the worst thing for me in the world that this relationship might end. But in reality, what I know is that you're going to cope. What you know as well is that you will cope in the long term. And it's not life or death. So it's not that kind of real threat that your body needs to react like this. The next reason, actually linking to the idea of the real threat, is that the part of your brain that can think clearly, that is logical, knows what is best for you, that part is offline in these moments when you're triggered and when you're activated, which just means that it is harder for us to think things through. It's harder for us to make decisions. It's harder for us to see things clearly. So in that moment, we're having this really intense reaction, because we're not able to see the reality of the situation. And in that moment, as a result, going back to that first point, the more intense it becomes, the more offline our logic goes, the more we can't see things clearly. Actually, what that means is we go in this cycle because then there's more of a threat. And so we end up in this cycle. The more the threat, the bigger the reaction. The bigger the reaction, the less we have logic and reason. So we really need to be able to pull back. And that's where you might look at my other video, or if you're listening, the other podcast episode that is giving you a technique to help with your triggers. I give you a technique called the shift or spiral. This might be a time that is really, really useful for you to use, and I will link that. A reason this trigger feels so intense is because something in your past is being remembered. It might well be a memory that you consciously remember, or it might be something that is under the surface. And it doesn't have to be the exact same experience. There could just be elements of it. Sometimes it's actually a sound, sometimes it's a smell. There could be elements of what is happening now that is kind of being pulled up from the past. And that makes it very, very intense. And what it means is we're in these situations, we're reacting, we're feeling all of these feelings. It might not make that much sense to us because, like I say, this situation might be seemingly small and we're questioning, why is this bothering me so much? And actually, there's something really being brought up from the past, which is why we have to give ourselves so much compassion, because you didn't choose your past and you're not choosing to be in this situation. So to understand that you're not to blame in these moments, there is work that we can do on this, but this is your history all at once. This is blocked emotion. There isn't actually a huge amount of research, a huge knowing as to how and why that happens. We do know ways to release it to help us, which, I'll talk about in other videos as well. There's over 150 episodes of lessons in attachment. You can also join the attachment recovery gym, where we have lots and lots of information about how you can release your past that's coming up in these moments. But essentially, the past is present in your body, and that's why it's so intense. I feel like when you hear it like that, it can make a lot of sense as to why you experience these kind of reactions. And the fourth point to say, again, just kind of extending on that third point, is to just recognize that it's very likely when the reaction is really intense, it's very likely that one of your core wounds is being activated. For anxious attachers, as an example, core wounds may be that I am always abandoned, I am bad. You'll have quite a specific core wound, more than one, that are specific for you, but also that can be quite generalized across anxious attachers and all other attachment styles as well. When your core wound is activated, it really means that everything feels so uncomfortable in our body, and we usually just want to do anything we can to undo this feeling, because it leaves us feeling not good enough. It leaves us feeling like I'm going to be abandoned. It's kind of all of our worst fears that we feel like are about to come true. And so again, it's very physical reaction because of that threat that we're experiencing. And you can just see how it all kind of links in together, which does make it quite complex. It makes it quite complex when it comes to healing this, when it comes to understanding this. But hopefully one of the main things that you'll notice is that I really try to come at this from a compassionate point of view. Because even if it is the threat, even if it's that the logic is offline or it's the past being brought up, we have to meet that with understanding. Beating ourselves up about that just really does keep this going. There are, of course, other reasons as well. This is a partial list, but they're the most common reasons that I see when I'm working with people on healing anxious attachment wounds. Just take note of it. It's food for thought for you. If you're, in therapy or you have a coach, it would be an ideal conversation to have with them. You can join the attachment recovery gym where, like I say, we dive deep into understanding our wounds and how to heal our wounds. And like I say, I will put in the description some other episodes that you might find useful, just to go a little bit further if you are noticing that you're having these intense reactions. Otherwise, I hope that you have found that useful. Please do like and subscribe, and you can come and follow me on Instagram, carly.ann_, where I'm putting out lots of content on how to move from anxious towards secure.